Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing fantastic. In this video, we're going to be taking a peek at the Nexus Dashboard Fabric Controller, specifically connecting an existing fabric to an external network. So let me share my topology that I have in store. So we're going to be concerned with Data Center 1 over here on the right hand side. It's just got 3 devices, a spine, 2 leaf switches. It's got an end host that we'll use for some connectivity test out to this WAN router. This WAN router is a Catalyst 8kV. These switches inside of the data center are Nexus 9kVs. So let's hop over to the NDFC. So in the NDFC, I have already created a fabric. The fabric is here. However, there are no switches that have been imported into the fabric. Just for sake of time, I did create a basic VRF, and I've already staged the network for the 10.1.101, which if we go back to the topology, will be the network that we attach this end host to. So let's go ahead and get our switches added to the fabric. So I'm going to come over to the switches. I'm going to say add switches. And in my case, they are reachable via this 10.2.176 network. So I'm going to just provide a seed address as well as the username and password. And I am not concerned about preserving the config. Let's go ahead and discover the switches. Alright, so we can see all 3 switches are reachable. So we're going to go ahead and add those to the fabric. This could take a couple minutes, so I'm just going to kind of pause the recording. Once they're added, I'll come right back. Okay, so we can see all 3 switches have been added, so I'm going to close out of here, and I'm going to set the roles accordingly. So our 2 leaf switches, because they'll be connecting to the WAN router here, they need to be set as a border leaf role. So I'm going to select both of them. I'm going to say set role to be border. Okay, and then I'm just going to switch the spine to a spine. If you want to be technical, this particular topology, in this case, it would be a border gateway spine, but since we're not concerned about the other side, we're just going to call it a spine because we're only playing with the WAN connectivity. So I'm going to go ahead and recalculate and deploy this. So we'll just take a peek at how many lines of config it's going to push, and then I'll go ahead and pause the recording while it's pushing that config. Okay, so we can see that it's going to push, a little over 300 lines of config to all the devices. So I will go ahead and deploy that. And as I mentioned, I'll come back. I'll pause the recording and come back when this is finished. All right, any second now. Okay, so the deployment is finished. Let's go ahead and close out. Now, as I mentioned, we have the VRF tenant 1 already configured, but we can see that it's not attached. Same thing with the networks. So let's go ahead and we are going to attach this 10.1.101 to port 5 of leaf 02 because that's what the topology calls for. So port 5 leaf 02. First thing we need to do is change that interface into an access port. So we're going to say interface equals Ethernet 1/5. And we are going to take this interface and we are going to change it to an access port. We'll go ahead and turn BPDU guard off. We'll set the frames to be, or the maximum transition unit to be 1500. Let's save that. We don't need to deploy yet. We're going to go back to networks and we're going to attach it at the same time. So we are going to attach it to leaf 02, edit, attach, port 5, save. We'll close out of here and we'll do a recalculate and deploy. So if we look at the 66 lines, we should see it is going to define that gateway on that switch, which is perfect. So let's go ahead and deploy. I'll go ahead and pause the recording just in case this takes a little bit of time. Actually, it was instantaneous. All right, perfect. So now with any luck, let's hop over to that host. So if we show IP, he has an IP of 10.1.101.11. And it looks like he can now ping his default gateway, which is perfect. Okay, good. So let's talk about the WAN connectivity. So that's where we're getting to right now. So let's close out of DC1 Fabric. We need to create a new fabric for the WAN device. So we're going to go ahead and say create a fabric. We'll call it WAN. In this particular case, we want to choose external connectivity network. It says it's a fabric for core and edge router deployments with a mix of Nexus and non-Nexus devices. So we're going to select that. And the topology states that it's 65535. We're going to uncheck monitor mode. And essentially, all the rest of these settings, we're just going to go ahead and take the defaults. So we'll save that. It's healthy because there's nothing in it. Let's go ahead and add the WAN router to the fabric. So we're going to add. The topology states that it is accessible via 10.2.173. I know that it's got the IP address of 61. It is an iOS XE device, specifically a Cat 8KV. And we should have SSH enabled, so let's just make sure that that is the case. So it sees that it's discoverable, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to say add. Okay, it's been added, so we'll close out of here. Now you can see that after it was brought into the fabric, it's an edge router, which is actually what we need it to be. So that is actually the correct role, so there's nothing we need to do as far as that's concerned. Let's just see if, I suspect there's not going to be any changes, but let's just double check. Okay, so it's all in sync, everything's good, so we'll just go ahead and close out. Now let me get logged into that router. I just want to show what we have. So this is that WAN router. If I show IP interface brief, okay, right now there's nothing configured on gig 1 or 2. If we go back to the topology, we should see that gig 1 and 2 are the two links going to the leaf switches. So since this is an iOS device, the NDFC will not configure these interfaces for us. It's something we need to go ahead and do. Apparently, if this is a Nexus device, the NDFC will do that, which I hope to test shortly after this video. But for now, we're going to go ahead and just pre-configure these interfaces. And based on the fabric settings, it's going to create sub interfaces. So if we go back, we just go back to the fabric and show you what I mean. So under resources, it says sub interface.1q range. It's going to start at 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to create sub interfaces that are encapsulation.1q 2, which you can see I have here. We're just going to put some IP addresses on. So for gig 1, 2, we're going to say encapsulation.1q 2. Two dot 2.1. Okay, so 1.1 and 2.1 under BGP, I have pre-stage the neighbors, so when the NDFC pushes its config, we should see neighbors come up. And then I've also just basically, I'm going to publish like a bunch of bogus networks just so we can see the routing table and its effect on a leaf switch. So that's all those are. And I just put those network statements in here. So that should be all we need to worry about on the WAN side. Let's go back to NDFC and let's go ahead and get those links configured. So in order to get the connections between the leaf switches and the WAN, we'll go over to Fabric for DC1. And if we go to links, we're going to go ahead and say create a link. In this particular case, the type is an Inter-Fabric because it's going to leave the DC1 fabric and go to the WAN fabric. So the source is the DC1 fabric, the destination is the WAN. The source device, we're going to do leaf 1 first. His destination is going to be WAN 1, which is that router. And then the topology says that interface 1/3 is the link that's going over to gig 1 of that WAN router. So 1.3 to gig 1. The source ASN is 65001, again based on the topology. And the IP address, like we had seen, we're going to be the .2 is going to be on the fabric, on the DC1 side. So source address should be 1.2, okay? Destination should be 1.1. We'll lower that MTU because we're in an EVPN environment. The destination autonomous system number is 65535. All right, and this checkbox is what I was getting at a minute ago. It says that it'll only be for managed Nexus OS neighbor devices, which that's not what we are. We are iOS XE. So we're going to go ahead and save that. And then we need to create the other link. So let's create the second link. Again, Inter-Fabric, coming from DC1 Fabric, going to WAN, but this time it's leaf 2. Destination is still WAN 1. It's still source 1.3, but this time it's going to be gig 2. Okay, so we're going to save that. Alright, so we've got our two links configured from the leaf switches port 1.3 over to the WAN box. Now there's one more piece of this. We need to go to the VRF for tenant 1. And for VRF attachments, we need to go to essentially both leaf switches because we're tying both of them together via those links we just created. So we're going to say edit. We want to attach VRF LITE. We want to extend VRF LITE to leaf 01. Okay? And if you scroll down, we need to say attach all on that link. So we're going to say save and edit next. Same thing for leaf 02. We want to extend VRF LITE and we want to attach that link. So we're going to save that. Now we're going to close. And at the fabric level, let's do a recalculate and deploy. So we can see that leaf 02 is going to get 23 lines. We can see that it's going to configure the BGP peering from leaf 02 over to that WAN box. And then let's look at leaf 01. We can see that it's also going to do the BGP, the peering. So this looks great. Let's deploy this. And while that's deploying, if we go to that WAN router, we can see the progress bars in the back. Looks like they just completed. And we're getting messages on our WAN router saying that neighbor 2.2 is up and neighbor 1.2 is up. So that is a great sign. So if we show IP BGP summary, we can see that we now have neighbors, which is awesome. We got leaf 1 and leaf 2, which is great. So on the leaf switch, leaf 2 is where that host is hanging off, right? So if we go back to our topology, leaf 2 has the host hanging off port 5. So let's just look at leaf 2. If we do a show IP route for VRF tenant 1, we can see that as of 42 seconds ago, we are now learning a default route that goes to the link over to that WAN router. And we can also see all of those networks that I had spoke about a few minutes ago, 251, 2, 3, and 4, are all being learned via BGP. Now the end goal is if we take this particular IP address and we go to our end host and we try to ping it, we now have reachability, which is awesome. So if we trace route, we should see it go through our default gateway, which is 10.1.101.1, and then we can see that it's leaving the fabric and going to that WAN router. So this is a demonstration on how to connect your fabric to an external network. In this case, we're just pretending it's a WAN, and we verified connectivity from the end host in the fabric to the loopbacks of the WAN router, which would be like branch locations or whatever it is you have on your network. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you.